Hello, everyone. Welcome to our latest webinar with Silver Hill Funding, DIY Marketing Tips for Today's Mortgage Pro, Tools to Build Your Brand. My name is Zach North. I'm Head of Marketing here at Silver Hill, and I'm joined by Joe Altamonte, our Head of Business Development. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Zach. Happy to be here, and thank you, everyone out there, for your time today.
Yeah, no, thank you, Joe. Thanks to everyone who joined today. We really appreciate it. I say this every time, but it means a lot that you're going to take some time out of your day to spend with us to talk about a subject that maybe you don't think about all the time, but one I think we all agree is very important, especially right now. That's why if you've worked with Silver Hill in previous years, if you know us well, you know we often talk about marketing. One of our best webinar in terms of registrants and attendees has been our Marketing Maven series that we've run in years past. And I think it was always so popular because we're all in that same boat. Whether you're a loan officer for a larger mortgage company, you're running your own shop, marketing is front and center. It's a relationship business. We have to be meeting people. We have to be forming those connections. And today, it's difficult. It's different and it's difficult. So what I want to talk about today are some tactics that you can use without breaking the bank, without hiring a lot of help, in order to get your name out there and make new connections. I think it's really important right now because one, our market is in a difficult place or a more challenging place. And two, you might have a different message, let's say, than you had before. And so that's like double trouble right there because one, you're having to try harder to get in front of people to create those opportunities for yourself. And two, you're going to have to position yourself as someone with authority in an area that maybe you're not as experienced. Maybe you're taking on commercial loans for the first time ever or for the first time in years. Or maybe you're expanding into more of the non-QM space. Maybe you've relied on that refi business for a long time. In other words, like your message is different now. And also you're trying to reach different people. Trying to do all that at the same time while marketing is not your day job can be tough and scary. So that's why we call it DIY, do it yourself. What I hope to give you some quick tips that you can put into action right now to help grow your business. So phase one, understanding the issue. We all know what's going on. The refi business has basically changed in a huge way recently. Now everyone is hunting after a smaller number of deals, number of loans. A lot of people expanding into commercial. That's Silver Hill Funding sweet spot. A lot of people trying to expand into non-QM, those bank statement type loans, other types of business that maybe you weren't doing before. Maybe you're not as well versed, or plainly, you just don't know as many people in that space. That's where marketing becomes critical because, in school, they taught us like the balance between reach and frequency, trying to get to as many people as possible and then trying to hammer them with the same message enough so that they think of you whenever they think of that particular scenario. And that's, like I said earlier, is where the challenge is because I think we're hunting after a different audience many times. And we also aren't quite sure the tactics at our disposal because they're not the same as they were before. Marketing is a really tough area because every couple of years, if not even shorter than that, all the tactics change. I remember a decade ago, everyone was talking about creating a blog. The blog was the big thing. And now we're not talking about blogs so much. And then it's social media. And then people wondering, well, how can I use social media? And now everyone has the accounts, but they're wondering why they're not as helpful as they thought they might be. And so there's always the shift. It's part of what keeps marketing fun, but also challenging, especially if it's not your day job, especially if you are running a smaller operation where you have to wear many hats. I think you'd prefer not to have to deal with marketing every single day. You'd like to have a process that works for you, maybe even a set it and forget it type thing. That's what everyone wants. But it's tough to have that kind of process when the tactics keep changing. So, like we usually do, I think we'll start off this presentation by creating a framework for who's here. I see a lot of people attending, which is awesome. Thank you again. But I don't really know whether you are part of a larger company and you don't have too much say in your marketing, and you're kind of the only marketing you can really do is on your own LinkedIn profile or something like that, or whether you're an owner and you can pretty much determine whether you're going to hire a company, whether you're going to do this kind of work in-house or what. So I'm going to launch a poll which basically asks just how marketing works for you. So I'm launching that right now, and I'm going to give everyone a little bit of time to complete it. Joe, I don't know if you can see, but we're saying, I do my own marketing. I've hired an agency to do my marketing. My company provides me with marketing support, and other, which is kind of like, I don't do marketing. So I think it'd be interesting to see who's here.
Gotcha.
Okay, going to give a few more seconds. Okay, awesome. So very interesting here, Joe. I don't know if you would have predicted this, but 75% of the people on this call say, I do my own marketing.
Wow.
Which is awesome because you can make it's hard and I feel for you, but you can make the decisions and you can actually put the plan in action. If you're not satisfied with your plan, or if you like your plan and you just want to, augment it with something, that's awesome that you have the capability of doing that. We have 11% saying my company provides me with marketing support. So few have an agency, and that's good, I think, for this conversation. And I guess it makes sense because you wouldn't have to do it yourself if you had help. But even then, I think that can be a blessing and a curse because an agency. Let me close out this. Agencies will obviously not have you as their only client, and so you're not getting all their time. And also, there are not very many agencies out there that have mortgage experience, that they know the terminology, they know the right publications, they know who to be talking to. So even when you have assistance, I think you find yourself doing a lot of work yourself. So that's really helpful to know. Thanks for everyone who took part in that. Moving on. All right, so phase 2, the plan. So I really like to start any kind of marketing discussion by identifying the funnel. I think a lot of people are familiar with sales funnels. I think there are many similarities, but as I think we'd all agree, marketing is different from sales. For us, this is what we use with my team here at Silver Hill, and it's what I've used everywhere. And I think I don't think people could really argue with this, that if you break down all the tactics you do, you're starting with acquisition or lead gen. Nurture is some people call it brand activation or evaluation, when you know that you want something, but you're deciding which option works best. There are transaction level tactics that this is how great experiences are created. And finally, retention, which is the one that people often forget, which is creating that brand loyalty. So I think what we're going to talk about today are some tactics you can do yourself to hit on each one of these points. And whenever we're launching a new marketing strategy, we're looking at sort of global view and how we're creating new relationships. I think all too often we start with the tactics, saying we got to get an ad in this magazine. We have to do an email campaign. But I think that when you take a step back and you first sketch out this funnel, and then you assign specific tactics, specific strategies to each one of these points, that's when you really get that all-encompassing campaign that's more likely to work in your favor. So just really quickly here, assuming I can get in, yes, setting the customer stages. I think that there are some that we really like to focus on and some that get ignored. Obviously, acquisition, everyone's interested in getting new leads, new opportunities. Perhaps for you, these are purely referrals. Perhaps these are other types of relationships that you're trying to grow. What we're going to talk about some today, in addition to the basics, are the areas of nurture. I think specifically for us, that means email campaigns, getting smarter with what you're saying when you're reaching out to people. This sometimes also happens on social media. And then we're also going to talk some about retention tactics that I think get ignored too. The finish line isn't actually the finish line for us in this industry, I think. And there are some tactics you can do that aren't expensive, they're often free, that can really help grow. I think transaction too, I think some marketing people kind of believe that their work is over when the opportunity comes in, and then they start thinking about the next opportunity to bring in. But there's so much that you can do from a marketing perspective in the middle of a transaction that can really create a more positive experience. Like one quick example are those mini surveys that you will see sometimes at the airport, or sometimes when you're working with some kind of tech company. They're asking you like just a simple question, like how happy are you with this transaction right now, and you're not even done yet. And it's just typically it's a smiley face, neutral face, and an unhappy face. And something as simple as that, where you're gauging reaction and gauging the experience level of your customer before they're done, I think it is really important. Something that is typically very inexpensive to set up with some very simple kind of survey tools. And we'll get more into those tools later on. I just think that those kind of tactics are what separate the really, really strong companies versus the ones that are literally just moving on to the next, and then to the next, and then to the next. So acquisition tactics. And I think throughout this presentation, you'll see stuff like this, and you'll say, okay, well, I know that, or I'm doing this. And what I hope comes across during this particular presentation is we're going to pull out some of those very specific things you can do today, or if not today, maybe next week, since 78% of you say that you're doing your own marketing, things that you can do. And so because I say that, what you won't see here is like purchase a billboard ad. You could certainly do that. I think those can be very effective, but you can't do it tomorrow. Typically, you're going to purchase those months in advance. Same with, magazine ads, even online banner ads. There's a much shorter window there, but those cost money. If you've ever done online banner advertising, you're typically paying based on the traffic of the website. And of course, you want to be at websites that get a lot of traffic. That can get very expensive, especially when you start bidding with other competitors. And as we saw on that slide earlier, very competitive these days. So what are other acquisition tactics you can do? You see website content. So you're thinking, okay, well, I have a website. If you're doing your own marketing, perhaps you operate your own website. Maybe it's a simple website like a WordPress site or something like that. There are acquisition tactics you can do with your site right now, typically around optimizing the landing page. For us, often, this means removing things, not even adding things. So if you look at your lead form as an example, whenever we remove fields, more people fill out our lead form. And that makes sense. We use a tool called Hotjar. Hotjar is really helpful for monitoring how people use your site. And so through recordings, and these are all anonymous recordings, but you can see where people get caught up on your lead forms. And often they fill out half the fields and then give up because there are too many. So, I mean, when you feel terrible if you knew that people are trying to reach out to you, but they just get tired of giving you so much information that you won't even really use when you first reach out to them, and then they're abandoning your site. And so when we talk about do-it-yourself acquisition tactics, we're talking about making those little changes that are going to drive more traffic to you. In the same way, social posts. Typically, we're talking about LinkedIn here. And I think one of the issues we have with LinkedIn as general marketing people, or in this industry especially, is that we try to have the whole conversation on LinkedIn. And the problem with that is that none of us own LinkedIn. LinkedIn is its own thing. The best practice these days is to take the conversation eventually off the social channel, which you do not own, onto real estate that you do own, which is typically going to be your website. And so when we talk about acquisition tactics for social media, we're often talking about what's the fastest way, the most effective way to get the user to enjoy, get value from content we're posting on LinkedIn, but then to leave LinkedIn and head to our website where they can give us their information, they can call us, they can do something with us. Because if all the conversation is staying on LinkedIn, we're not really able to measure how successful it is, and we're competing with everything else that happens on social media, the cat videos and everything else, even on LinkedIn these days. So moving on to nurture tactics. This is a big one for us. And I think a big one for anyone in our space, because we're so relationship driven. I think getting a lead is a fantastic thing, but nurturing that lead, getting them closer to doing business with you and choosing you is really where we live or die. And so typically we see this in sort of our inbound content. You might call it organic web content. This is where these are the thought pieces, the authority pieces that make you look like you're the expert in the field, and make you look trustworthy, which is so important for us. Social proof, the testimonials, the case studies. And notice, like, nothing I'm saying here is an expense, because like you have these case studies, people have worked with you, you've created a great experience with someone. So this is merely telling that story in a way that helps others identify with the same experience and want that from you. And of course, email campaigns. I'm assuming that most people on this call are using some sort of mass email service. If you're doing your own marketing, you might be using like MailChimp or Constant Contact, perhaps Marketo, Pardot, which is connected to Salesforce. There are all sorts, Zoho, there are all sorts of different tools, and I don't know which ones you're using, but likely you're using one of these, and making small tweaks to either the cadence, like how many emails you send, or specifically what you're saying when you send emails, is a classic DIY tactic. And we're going to get more into specifically how we do that. Not that we're the experts, but how we do that and how you might be able to benefit from some making a small adjustment. Now, transaction tactics. As I was saying earlier, I think we forget about this, or we don't forget about it, but we think it's not our responsibility as marketers. And, if you want to get technical, it's not, your operations staff, there's a assembly line process with a loan that the marketing person is probably not going to have too much to deal with. But if we think of a marketing role as a communications role, then I think we certainly have a lot to do with it. And I think where that makes the biggest impact is on the customer confidence level throughout the transaction. I think if we think of marketing people as communicators, we've got a role here to help people feel comfortable, to help explain what's going on, and to help them feel like they know what the next step is going to be. I've listed a couple ways where we've attempted to do this. One helpful thing to do is create an infographic. And you might be saying, hey, I'm doing my own marketing, I'm not a graphic designer. If you use a tool like Canva, which is often free to use or very inexpensive, there's a lot you can do with ready-made infographics. That website is just great for 100 different reasons. Even if you have some graphic design help, for supplementing that with Canva, it can be super helpful. But there are tools out there that already exist that are going to look about 85% right for exactly what you want to do. And it's very simple then to make an adjustment so it fits for you. FAQs, a classic DIY tactic, because if you're in a position where you're doing your own marketing, you know what the questions are. As a marketing person, for me at Silver Hill, I have to ask people often. We say, hey, one of our account executives say, what's a question that a broker asks you a lot? Because I'm building out some FAQs to be as helpful as possible. Or if you're like a processor, a transaction manager, you're going to know those typical questions that you get. So that's the good news, because you're not making something up. This does actually not require any creativity. It's really just about identifying those questions you get all the time and then putting them on a place like your corporate website to help people feel more comfortable, or sharing them, like emailing them out during the transaction so that the customer understands what to expect. One sneaky benefit, I shouldn't use the word sneaky, one additional benefit of FAQs are that they're often going to have the keywords that you really want to have on your website. So it's one of those places where you can put in those mortgage related terms that you're trying to score highly on for like a Google search engine result page, a SERP. You can get and that's not the end all be all anymore like it used to be, but it's still very important that Google recognize that you're an authority in the field, and having an FAQ page and littering that FAQ page with the words you're trying to rank for can make a difference. Again, I hesitate to really say that that's all there is to it, because Google changes their algorithm all the time. and keywords are not as crucial as they used to be. But what is important is establishing authority. Google won't tell us how they measure authority, but having the FAQ page, answering all the questions that people are likely going to ask, and having the information freely available is helpful. So I call these transaction level tactics. And again, nothing here is expensive. For video content, we use a tool. You can use a tool called like Biteable. There are a lot of really helpful video tools that work the same way as Canva, where they're pretty much made for you, and this does not require a degree in graphic design. You can do these videos. One way to make a really helpful video or one subject is just doing the transaction steps. Like you likely have 5 or 6 general steps that you expect, or how to apply with you. Like simple how-tos, doing them in video format instead of a listicle or something like that is a helpful way of breaking up the way you're communicating with people and looking bigger than you are, which I suspect is something that we all want to do if we're doing our own marketing. We don't have a huge team. We want to present as though we do, and leveraging video tools is one really good way to do that. Lastly, here, retention tactics. So again, I mean, these are things that we all can do without buying things, which is really important right now, I think. Now, post-transaction surveys. There are survey tools that you can purchase that are inexpensive. You can also just create an email process through the provider you already have to just automatically deliver an email following a transaction. It's really helpful, one, because you're getting the feedback. 2, because this is where you'll often get testimonials that you can share on LinkedIn. And 3, this is where you can learn about other things to do to help your process. So it's helpful in many different ways. But if you're thinking that you would like to show case studies on LinkedIn, which is a great idea, but you're not really sure how to get the information without just calling someone and perhaps interrupting their day, one simple way to do that is to attach a post-transaction survey to follow up with your customer. And then it's not even really you asking, it's the service, and you'll get those responses. And often people will provide a more honest response if you're not just asking them over the phone. Like it's an easier way to get more truthful responses and responses that you can use, provided you gain their permission, which is an important thing to do. Now, emails. If you know Silver Hill, if you know us at all, we definitely send emails. A monthly newsletter is a good type of email because someone doesn't have to read everything you do in order to understand what's going on. One, it's helpful to share your content. 2, I think what it does, especially now that I know a lot of us here are doing our own marketing, it shows off that you're active. And I think people even if they don't read the whole email, if you've got 5 or 6 interesting things going on in the coming month, like you're saying, hey, I'm going to be at this event. I'm running this webinar later in the month. We're running this promotion. And there are about 3 or 4 different ways to connect with me, including, LinkedIn and somewhere else. That person knows that you are on top of your game and that you are perhaps an authority in your field. And so I think newsletters are helpful even when people aren't really clicking through or reacting too much to them. You know that they have an impact. Lastly, personal communication. If you read marketing books, like this is true of almost any field, but getting out of the automated campaigns and actually doing something like personal makes a huge difference. I'll never forget earlier on when I was with Silver Hill years ago, a vendor we did not use, but a vendor sent me a pair of socks. And it was the weirdest thing. I was like, why did they send me socks? But it was a joke, and it was about how, working in finance can be as boring as these socks, but we make it more interesting, like give me a call. And then the person who the vendor actually called me and we laughed about it. And, I may not have answered that call, or I would never have even really cared about that company had they not done that special little thing. Obviously, socks, there's an expense with socks, probably not a huge one, but you don't even have to do that. Writing it sounds dumb, but writing a letter, like sending a card, making a personal phone call, getting out of the world of just sending emails from info@ABC Mortgage and sending an email from you just makes a difference with people. And not only that, but they're more likely to get opened. We've noticed that over the years too. So sending a more personal communication is always a nice do-it-yourself tactic, because that kind of human touch is always free or really inexpensive, but it can help you stand out from those larger marketing companies that just launch thousands of impersonal emails every week. So before I move on to how some of these tactics work, Joe, is there anything you'd like to add? Because I know you're in front of people all the time. You travel a lot. You're always meeting, growing relationships, and I know you're not putting your face out on billboards, even though I think that'd be a great tactic. Is there anything that you want to add to this overview I just gave?
There we go. I was on mute there. I don't know if you're going to touch on specific tactics for trade shows, but I can share an example of how they can be really useful. So, we mentioned trade shows. They're great. They're great network building events. But give you an example. One of our very successful AEs has been working with a client for a little while now. We've had good conversations with them, setting up trainings with them, and turns out they're going to be at the same event in Vegas that we are going to be at. And rather than saying, hey, let's get up and do some dinner, we're going to put together a mini event for them at the trade show. So a sort of a sort of sideshow that we're not even going to really formally register with the trade show. Take them off into a side room and sit down and do some marketing with them in that way, and help them market as well. So these types of networking opportunities can turn into advertising opportunities as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially when the in-person that touch is there. I think with trade shows, it's so easy to just sit behind the table and hand out pens and collect the business cards in the fishbowl. And in our view, it's like you pay to go, whether you're just an attendee and you're walking around, or maybe you're presenting, maybe you're exhibiting, just getting out from behind the table, which is kind of a nice symbol, I guess, a metaphor. But like getting out there, like creating those relationships, again, like either inexpensive, or it's something you've already paid for, or something that is not going to take any more effort than what you've already put into attending the event, can make all the difference in the world. Just creating the community, and that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit, is creating the community, which is about who you are, but also how you help others. It is free in that it's not a paid tactic. It's just a very helpful thing that cuts through the clutter, which is so often the paid tactics are often the ones that create the most clutter, which is why we hate banner ads with a passion, because they're invasive. What Joe just suggested is the opposite of invasive. It's a hey, we're going to be here together, and if you want to be a part of what we're doing, like, come meet us here. And I think that's you've given the agency to your customer, and you're giving them the choice to come to you. And I think that's when you see marketing be effective in today's world, where we're so distracted every 2 seconds with something else. So some build tactics. So now we're getting a little more tactical. I know I kind of described tactics already. I got a question from someone asking about the name of a tool, and I know I kind of run through those kind of quickly, and often they have weird names. So I'll repeat the tools at the end in case you're interested in adopting some of these. I certainly have no referral relationship with any of these companies, but I like them, and I think they're helpful for us. And while I do have a marketing team here at Silver Hill, we're not huge. And so these tools help us, and they're invaluable. So Joe talked about the value of the shows, meeting with partners, of course, calling, creating collateral. Creating a collateral is an interesting one, because for many years we've offered to help with that. And I think that's really helpful for those of you who are doing your own marketing when you don't have to create all the product sheets yourself. You can get unbranded ones from Silverhill. And I know we're not the only lender that offers that service, but I like the ones that we make. I think they look cool. And one of the cool things about them is that we create them in neutral tones, so they're going to work with your logo. We give you the space to add your information, obviously your contact information, but also your design influence too, because we don't want your marketing, or you don't want your marketing materials to look like orange like ours, and that's not why you want them. And so we want to be as helpful as possible. So toward the end, I'm gonna talk a little more about the tools that we have available for you, especially if you're doing your own marketing. Anyway, email marketing. So as I mentioned before, we send so many emails that we think a lot about email. I think about email all the time because it is invasive. Like we're entering your inbox, and so I have to do that with respect for you and for your inbox, which I'm sure is overflowing with emails you never asked for. So these are some tactics that we try to keep in mind all the time. Again, tactics that this is not about hiring an agency to revamp your marketing. It's not about purchasing a more expensive marketing email automation tool. This is about using what you have and perhaps optimizing. So, one, of course, if you're sending one email every week to everyone in your database, perhaps you haven't segmented enough. Segmentation is a process, but it's not an expensive process. What it is determining who you're talking to and putting the right message in front of each type of person. What I'll say there is that there's a way to do that where you segment your audience by the type of product they want. So let's say you're working with residential and commercial referral partners, you could refer that way. If you're marketing to borrowers, you could market to residential and commercial like that. Or if you're more in the B2B, business to business space, you could also segment by customer journey with you. So if you think about it that way, it's not so much product focused, it's relationship focused. So now in that sense, you'd have those people who are new leads, you'd have those people who open your emails but have never done business with you, and then you have those people who are your like power customers, like your strongest partners. And so that's just a different way to think about segmentation. Because if you think about it, you wouldn't talk to a stranger the same way you talk to like your cousin, So that's one segmentation, that tweak that maybe you're not doing, maybe you are. Always good to think about the golden rule. Simply, I don't want to get emails every day from random people, so why would I deliver that to others? Obviously, personalization helps. If you're using any kind of tool that's more advanced than like Outlook, which if you're doing mass email, you pretty much have to, then you likely have access to tools for personalization. If personalization can get scary because you don't want it to break, and we've all seen the examples where you get an email from like Macy's and there's a bunch of random code where your first name should be. No one wants that experience. But if you just do a little bit of testing, you can feel pretty confident about it. And the studies just, they can't be ignored. When you put someone's first name in the subject line of an email, or when you put their name within the email, or add some other personal information that you have access to, then that will increase open rates. It will increase click-through rates. And so I think that tactic can be overused just like any other one. But if you're being smart about how you use it, simply dropping in someone's name, like my name is Zach, saying, Zach, this new promotion would be great for your business, as opposed to new promotion available at ABC Mortgage. Like, which do you think would capture my attention, And then clear call to action. I think we've been guilty. I struggled with this, and I still do sometimes, because there are a lot of different things you can do with Silverhill. And so I'm tempted to tell you about all the things you can do with Silverhill and say, go do this, or maybe go do that. Or if that's not right for you, then go do this. It can become challenging for the end user. And I think if you look back at some of the most effective emails you've received, they're asking you to do one thing. And so I think if you're looking at your emails and you've got about 15 different, I know a lot of us in this industry, we send emails about 38 different bullet points. If you look at your email and there's a lot that you're asking of the reader, it might be hurting your conversion. So if you kind of simplify that and say, I'm going to ask you to do one thing today. I want you to register for this webinar, or I want you to give me a call to talk about our new DSCR solution. Like, they may do it or they may not, but at least you're not confusing them or just inundating them or scaring them away. So I think those some not easy, they're actually challenging, but inexpensive anyway, tactics that you could adopt and maybe improve the way you communicate through email. For social media, we've listed some of the ones that we see others in our space use. And to be honest, we use all these except Instagram today, but our focus is on LinkedIn. And chances are you're focused on LinkedIn too, which is helpful in two ways. One, we know that the people we want to talk to are on LinkedIn. It's the most, quote unquote, professional of the social media platforms. And two, it's the least competitive. And you might say that sounds crazy because, everyone I know in my space is all posting on LinkedIn. And that's true, but the numbers of the usage of LinkedIn just can't compare to other social tools, which is great because with a little bit of help, a little bit of engagement on your post, you're more likely to go viral, so to speak. We've seen it all the time. If you can get 20 people to like a LinkedIn post, that post will get seen by other people, strangers, people you're not connected with. It doesn't take much. Whereas if you're on Instagram or TikTok or something, you've got to get a lot of eyes on your post before the algorithm will start sharing it with others. So it's a lower bar to clear, and that's great for us because it's a challenge. So with LinkedIn, we'll talk a little bit more specifically about how we do it in a second, but I think the more you can get away from pure ads on LinkedIn and the more you can invite conversation, that's a benefit, a positive. And also the more you can talk about true stories from the perspective of the person you're trying to reach. And I think it makes sense when I say it, but it's so hard to actually do because we're tempted to start every marketing piece with we, right? We do this, announcing this new program that we are offering. Like, I do this, I can help you, I provide this, this is why people like me. If you simply turn those phrases around, I think this is helpful everywhere, but specifically on LinkedIn or other social channels you're using, and just start every sentence with you and just see what would happen. Or if you took every marketing sentence that you wrote this week and just switched out the we's for the you's and seeing how that would affect what you're saying, I think that could be the biggest takeaway from this kind of presentation, because we're talking now about, like, these are the ways you can be benefited. This is how we helped you or someone like you realize their dream. Really helpful in the mortgage industry because the case studies are like transferable, where it makes sense to people. They've seen that the solution you provided, and they have a similar need. Like that, this purchase went well. Like I could get what I want. That cash out is like, that's kind of like my need. I think people can see their needs very easily within the case study framework in our industry. And so it's a really useful tool, not to mention the fact it shows that you're active, it shows you're doing business, and there's instant expertise because people say, oh, this person must know something because they got it done, and I need to work with someone who can get it done for me. And so simply turning social media on its head and getting you focused, which is really tough in today's world, I think is very important. Again, something you can do. If you're doing your own marketing, you're doing your own content probably. And so you can make this impact, which is great. So kind of one of the last things we'll do is just talk about sample product. And so what we do at Silver Hill is, or what we do not do is what we do not start with the tactics. I think that the important thing to start with is your overarching objective, your marketing objective, setting that down, and then writing the strategies and tactics as they relate to your objective. So you can see here, like, you have your messaging, you have your customers that you want to talk to. You have to determine these things first and what exactly it is you want before you write your piece and before you share. Otherwise, of course, it's impossible to know whether it's been effective or not, and you won't truly know if you've reached the right people. And so we'll show you in a second our framework of how we produce a content piece. Making content is one of the hardest things for small marketing teams to do, especially like a one-person marketing team. It can be really tough to actually write content. If you weren't an English major or something like that, you might think, I'm just not a writer. With this kind of framework, it can be done. And so I'm excited to kind of show you like what we do there. So this is kind of in the testing. So before, like when you have your piece, you're evaluating how it might be effective. You often hear people say build awareness. Build awareness is really tough because it's almost impossible to measure. But with this framework, I think it does have value, because what you're asking yourself before you really get started is you're saying, is this going to help people know how I help them? Is this content going to help someone trust me? And is this content about something bigger than just myself? And I think that's where engagement comes from today. And you'll notice, like, nothing here is saying, is this going to show that I'm great? And what we're saying is, like, can we build trust through this? And so I think, especially if you're talking to, or you're trying to identify new audience with new products, they won't inherently trust you. In fact, there might be mistrust, thanks to the way our industry works. So you've got to overcome that. And so the way you do that is by telling a true story well. And I say that all the time. But if you can tell a true story effectively, that's when content starts to work. So we'll show just a little bit how that works in a second. Since I just mentioned that awareness is kind of a tough thing to measure, we look at click-through rates. You might be tempted to look at open rates all the time, but I open emails just to delete them. So maybe that happens to you too. So we don't get too hung up on open rates. Click-through more important, because that shows someone sees what you're saying and they say, I want more of that, and I want to see what's next. And obviously monitoring content, comments on your social media, if you make comments available, and then tracking views. The tool I mentioned earlier called Hotjar, really effective tool, not very expensive, to hook that up to your website and start to measure heat maps, like where people go, what pages, and not even what pages, but where on the page they go. Really helpful if you've got a contact form on your website and people aren't filling it out and you're not sure why. Maybe you just have it in the wrong place, like not even the wrong page, but the wrong part of the page. And so a tool like that can be really helpful. These are kind of metrics that we look at when we're trying to measure community engagement with our tactics. And right here, what we're trying to do is make the process less difficult. And so I think we all know this to be true, but people do not give us very much rope anymore. If something's complicated, there are many other people who can do it for them. So when we're doing our own marketing, we could be tempted to keep layering on additional tactics. We have to keep thinking about simplification. So simplification becomes huge when you think about what you could do. And so it's like, I only have one poll question here, but if I had a second one, I could say, like, how many of these are you doing? Like, the fact is, we might dabble in all of these, but we can't do all of them successfully if we're by ourselves or if we have a really small team. And so I think part of what the value of testing, evaluating, being honest with the effectiveness of your tactics, especially when you're doing them yourself, is picking 3 here or picking 2. Maybe if you're struggling, just focus on one at first. Perhaps that's going to be email or social, and to say, I can't afford going to events right now. My referral network is what it is. Like, I'm probably not, and I don't want to pay for ads when I'm not even sure, like, if they're going to work or not. Focus on the ones that you already have access to, your LinkedIn account, the emails you deliver. And from that, maybe it could grow into other things. The next slide is going to show kind of what I mean by that. What we do here a lot are webinars. Obviously, we're in one right now. But we don't just do webinars, and we don't use the webinar presentation just for the deck. And what I mean by that is the way it was described to me at a marketing conference years ago was, it was like Thanksgiving turkey. It's like, sure, there's the meal, but then, unless you have 30 people at your house, you're going to have leftovers. And I mean that in the best sense, as if every leftover were really good. Because what you want to be able to do is do the work once. It's so important when we're talking about DIY tactics, is to make the piece once and then leverage it in other ways. So like right here, our deck is, 30 something slides. If all we ever use this deck for was this presentation, it wouldn't be the best use of my team's time putting it together. So what we do is we pull out other things, a short video, an infographic, make a blog post about the webinar. If you follow us on LinkedIn, you've probably seen advertisements for this webinar on LinkedIn. There's so much stuff you can do using the same content. And I think the small marketing teams or the one-person marketing teams that are the most effective truly understand the value of repurposing. I don't mean repeating or just copying or just putting out the same stuff over and over and over again, because no one wants that. But using what you have and having the sense to identify, like you made this case study for this closed loan that you helped create the success story for. How can I use that besides the LinkedIn post? Like, can that go somewhere on my website? Like, can I email someone? Like, if I segmented appropriately, I might know other people who could benefit the same way. That's when you're starting to get the max value out of your content. So I know I ran through a lot there. Whenever you're talking about marketing tactics, it can be a little confusing because everyone's marketing battle is a little different. But I think in this space, we're dealing with a lot of the same challenges. And I think everyone is dealing with the challenge of attention spans and just clutter. We're also dealing with the challenge of expense. Nothing's cheaper, right? And so if you're working with yourself, if you're working by yourself, if you don't have a marketing team or you've got a very small marketing team, I hope some of these tactics have been helpful. My recommendation is, even if you thought 85% of them were not worth your time, let's focus on the ones that maybe you thought had a little bit of value and just work on one thing. And let's not just get ahead of ourselves and try to do everything all the time at once. That's the real problem that marketing people have. But just focus on that one thing they might have gotten from this. Like, you know what? I'm going to take a look at the way I start off my emails. I'm going to try to put the person's name in an email. I'm going to try to remove all the we references and start to reference the recipient of the email a little more and see if that impacts my click-through rate. And if you're able to improve that, then I think that'd be a really positive thing to get out of this. So anyway, I hope that's been valuable. And now I'm going to hand it off to Joe, who's going to make a transition into Silver Hill and talk a little about what we do, what we offer, and maybe, Joe, if you come across any parts that kind of intersect with marketing, you can call them out. But we can talk a little more about how we can help you besides marketing. Joe, ready to go?
Let's do it. Thanks, Zach. So getting a little bit more product focused, once you do generate those leads and those borrowers, you have a lot of different things that you can direct them into. We have diverse options here to help small business owners, whether they're investors, they own their own business, or they rent out their properties, flexible funding opportunities. So a lot of times these borrowers that we run across are having trouble getting qualified at the bank, or sometimes simply don't want to go through the process at the bank. And again, coming through us, great customer service, of course, but we've been doing this a long time. So we know how to structure these loans. We know how to put them together to make sure that they close and they are the best solution for your borrower based on their needs. So we have, talking about diverse options, anything from a full doc program, which can help your most buttoned up borrower. But many of these small business owners and investors don't necessarily have all that documentation or want to share it. So there are a number of different options, from light doc through no doc streamline, which means we don't ask for tax returns or bank statements. For owner-occupied properties, owner-occupied meaning their business occupies the property, we have a bank statement program where we don't ask for tax returns. And of course, for 1 to 4 unit investor residential properties, we have a debt service coverage ratio program. So a lot of different options for a lot of the different leads that you're going to generate through some of these awesome marketing tactics that Zach has talked about today. Now,
the scary slide.
The scary slide. Oh boy, Joe's going to go through every block on this slide in grave detail. Not necessarily. What I will tell you is that we share this presentation so that you'll have the ability to take this slide and post it, put it on a billboard in front of your office, just so that it's always front and center in front of you. This is a resource. But even bigger resource to you is your Silver Hill account executive, because they're the person that can help align your borrower with the right solution that you see on the page. So I'll point out a couple of things of note. Depending on the program, the LTVs can be different. So if the question's about down payments, you can look right down the chart and see which program offers the best solution for your borrower. We do have prepayment penalties on our products, but we have a lot of different options for those. So the prepayment penalty, the longer it is, the lower the rate, and vice versa. Most of our programs fall under the debt service coverage ratio underwriting methodology. So we're generally not running debt to income ratios, which is probably one of the biggest reasons these borrowers don't qualify at the bank or the Small Business Administration or other options that they have out in the marketplace. And notice that documentation varies quite a bit. So anytime you're talking with a borrower who, when you ask them how their tax returns look and they start their answer with the term, here's the thing, we're probably the solution for those particular borrowers. So keep this slide front and center once you receive this presentation and work with your AE on aligning your borrower with the most practical solution. I covered this probably in my soliloquy on the last slide. You know, the borrower just misses SBA eligibility, does not want to show his tax returns. You know, banks might be a little light on the LTV or a little heavy on their requirements. Borrowers trying to get some money to do something. Banks, SBA, they might do a cash out loan, but they're going to be very restrictive with how the borrower uses it. Many times they'll control the funds, ask for invoices, and so forth. Generally speaking, Silver Hill, as long as that the borrower is attesting that it's a business purpose for that cash out, we are going to fund the entire cash out amount at the closing, again, generally speaking. So, you know, we are also a good solution for folks that are in a hard money situation, a short-term or a bridge loan situation. So keep those things in mind. You may have helped those borrowers in the first place, and now they are looking for a longer-term solution. Great opportunity for you all, because many of you from the residential background will say, you know, will operate under the fact that you're tied to your comp elections with any one given lender. Well, on the commercial side, you can be flexible from borrower to borrower. So we allow you to make up to 5 points on a deal. That's a combination of 3 origination fee paid out of closing and 2 in yield spread, which is paid after closing through an ACH arrangement. So, you know, not all of our brokers make 5 points on all of our deals, that's for sure. The average is probably anywhere between 2 and 3 in a combination of both tactics. However, you know, you have the ability, without having to stick to a comp election, of saying, this borrower has a lot of options, I better be competitive, and working lean on that guy. When the next borrower comes along, you say, geez, this person doesn't have many options. I can be a little more aggressive in my fee structure and make a little bit more money. So that's really what's cool about that. And, you know, payment with the YSP is made outside of closing. So you're disclosing what your fee is, but you're not disclosing any incentive that you earn for selling a little bit of a increased rate. And again, Zach's team can really help you on the collateral. So utilize his team, personalized collateral, and unbranded on our part so that you can use it as your own. That being said, here's how to get started. Zach, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So, yeah, I like Joe's last point said, we have materials for you, toolkit type materials, product sheets, social media posts. You know, like, let's say you liked what you heard about LinkedIn posts today, but you're thinking, well, geez, like, how am I going to actually make one? We've made them for you. And so that could be a great head start, where it's like you can commit to making your own down the road, but you don't want to wait 2 months. So we can get you started. We have the product sheets too. They're focused on our programs, but we've removed the parts that aren't going to work for you or won't make sense for you. So they're designed so that you could use them. So reach out to your account executive from Silver Hill to help set you up with that. You can email me my email, and we'll see this later, but znorth@silverhillfunding.com, and Joe, you know, jaltamonte@silverhillfunding.com. We'll get in touch with you if you've got questions, but the best person to talk with, you know, to get started with Silver Hill is going to be your account executive. You can go to our website, go to our commercial website, silverhillfunding.com, and look at our contact page to see where your account executive is, if you don't already know who that person is, but definitely get in touch with them. They can help you with the unbranded materials, and of course they can help you with your scenario, and help grow your business. So obviously, I like talking about marketing. I think that's clear by the length of this presentation. I hope you found some value in it. I really like to talk about marketing with you too, outside of this. So if you've got questions, shoot me an email. We'd love to have that kind of discussion. And I really wish all of you guys the best, because, there's a lot of work to do. It's fun work, but it's a lot of work. So, I hope all your marketing efforts go well. We'll continue to do these kind of marketing presentations throughout the year, in addition to our other webinars. So we hope you can join them. And I can't wait to see what everyone does. I'll be looking on LinkedIn. So hope to see some cool materials soon. And with that, hope you all have a really great rest of your day, great rest of the week, and we'll be in touch next time. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Zach.
Bye, everyone.